Big spoiler warning up ahead, there's going to be a bunch of bosses getting one-shotted and losing chunks of their health in just seconds because the build is incredibly busted. So if you want to be able to do some stuff like that yourself, just keep watching. And now a quick word from today's sponsor. Tired of handing in your resumes only for them to be rejected before the employer even gets to the second line? Well, Six Figure Resume has you fully covered by getting you the job that you want. They guide you each step of the way, telling you exactly what employers are looking for and how to make your resume stand out from everyone else's. There's a reason it's called the Six Figure Resume. It'll get you that high-paying job that you know you deserve. The link will be in the description down below, and with that out of the way, let's get into the video. So, starting off with the weapons, we're gonna grab the, you know what, I'm calling it the Nutta Hammer. I don't know how to say it, but this one, yeah, I know, off to a good start already. The scaling almost goes hand in hand with our stats, having a B+ in Radiance, Inferno, and Strength, but we don't really care too much about the Strength part, just the Radiance and Inferno. Saying that, I've been able to get the hammer to drop around 1,000 to 1,600 damage, depending on if I do a fully charged heavy attack or not, which is kind of wild, because this build isn't even centered around this hammer, and it still smashes people easily. This weapon's more for when I turn a corner and there's someone there and I don't really want to go through the whole process of getting away from them to create some space, pulling out the catalyst, and waiting for them to turn the corner so I can blast the life out of them. Instead, I just turn the corner, I see them, and I give them a good old bonk on the head and keep going. That's another thing I love about these Grand Hammers, the bonking sound it makes when you smash a monster's head in. Oh, just a nice little bonk. Now when it comes to the runes for it, there's only one that's extremely important, like a must-have thing, and that's the Crafter's Essence. It reduces the weapon's weight down to 0, so it saves us a lot of points in endurance because Grand Hammers are stupid heavy, but most importantly, it lowers the stat requirements down to 0 as well. Normally, we would need 26 Strength, Radiance, and Inferno just to use it. The Radiance and Inferno wasn't a big issue here, I have a ton of points in them already. It was more so the Strength part, and I didn't want to invest so many points into a weapon that's not even the main focus of this build or doing the most damage. This weapon's just a really nice addition, and that's about it. Continuing on, I placed the Gravix rune in the Strength slot to increase the hammer's physical damage while two-handing it. You don't need only this rune, grabbing anything that says it's going to increase its physical damage is what we want. So even using the Ixen one, which is going to do the same thing, increasing our physical damage, is completely okay. And lastly, I threw on the Balago rune. I was about to say the Bellagio actually, but you know, the Balago rune that reduces an enemy's armor when I hit them, so just doing increased damage to them after the first swing. In addition, I equipped a small shield for this build since our heaviest weapon now weighs literally nothing, but I don't actually use it though. It's always going to be on my back just so I can get some extra rune buffs from it, like the Hicks ones that increase my strength stat, also making the hammer do more damage because, again, it does have a B+ scaling and strength and we barely have any points in there. The shield part of this setup isn't that special. You can honestly just skip right over this if you want to. It's not going to make a massive difference, but every little bit does help. So I found when using the hammer, it's best to do heavy attacks. Even if they're not charged up, they look like they swing much faster than the light attack version and also throw out a bit more damage as well because it is a heavy attack. Just a little side note for when you're using the hammer. But anyways, let's move on to the spells now for massive amounts of damage. The first one I like to use on a more regular basis is Latimer's Javelin. It's honestly perfect for taking out enemies that are kind of far away, and if there's guys close by to them, the Javelin also explodes, so it does have an area of effect. The blast radius isn't too big, so don't expect to be taking out large crowds quickly. It's more for picking off single targets, but really, it's good enough to be used in any situation. And to make it even better, I like to combo it with the spell Diminishing Missile that reduces an enemy's attack and defense. It also does a bit of damage, but I more so like this for the debuff effect. It just comes really clutch in boss fights or against strong opponents because you don't really have to worry about it after it hits them, and then you can just spam the Javelin attack or run in with the hammer and start doing extra damage. Speaking of the hammer, I always have it buffed with the spell Umbral Weapon. I'm not sure if it just increases its damage or if it also adds a frost buildup to it, but either way, this buff is always applied. Now you're probably thinking it's a waste of mana, but it really isn't, because with this setup we have an infinite limited amounts, so we can just spam our spells as much as we want to. And finally, for the most important spell to completely nuke enemies, Barrage of Echoes. You fire out 5 orbs that spread out more the farther you are and then explode right when they hit a wall or the ground. The spell's fantastic for clearing out tight areas or if there's a lot of guys in a room. It just has a really nice area of effect. So the way I get this to basically nuke bosses or strong enemies is really simple. If you unlock from your target and free aim at their feet or right in front of you, all of those orbs will hit the same spot and explode together, just throwing out a huge bombardment of damage. Kind of like a shotgun. And the best part about this is the spell can be spammed pretty quickly, so those damage numbers stack up really fast. But the issue with this kind of attack is no one is just going to let you stand that close to them and start committing war crimes by dropping 50 bombs at their feet. Not to worry, there is a very easy way around this. We just tear up that Geneva Convention and we are good to go. No, but for real, this is a very easy thing to get around. If you Soulflay an enemy, this gives you an open window to throw out whatever attacks we want without being punished. So just get up close, free aim at their feet, and spam the attack. You'll banish Jimbo to the Shadow Realm forever. Now, the stun when you Soulflay an enemy is kind of short, so throwing on the Umbral Eye of Lorello the Cursed Knight is going to stun them for a longer period of time. And then, if you want, which I'm sure you will, you can toss on the Umbral Eye of Oleren, New Orleans, in the secondary slot and do an extra 25% damage to their ghost form. Yes, I know it's not New Orleans, I don't know how to pronounce it, and I'm getting kind of tired of trying to figure out how to pronounce these names, so that is now considered New Orleans. You can also add in the Umbral Eye of the Pale Butcher to stack up another 25% damage buff on top of this, because with the new update that just came out, literally right when I was at the end of making this build and going to post it, they released one. It changed the effect of the Pale Butcher's Eye and also nerfed the Barrage of Echoes spell. Not to worry, I already tested it out to see if this build is still effective, and it's pretty much the same, so you'll be good to go. To really maximize the damage, you first want to throw out Diminishing Missile to debuff them, follow that up by Soulflaying them, and finish it off by spamming Barrage of Echoes. You could also just throw out Diminishing Missile to debuff them and then snipe them from a distance with Latimer's Javelin. There's not a wrong way of using this build because like no matter what you do, every attack is going to hit really hard. Aside from leveling our character up to increase our damage, the type of rings and pendant we use does matter a lot. So for the pendant, you're going to need the pendant of Atrophy, a pendant of Atrophy. We're going with that one. This is what allows us to spam our spells even when we're out of mana. What it does is when we run out of mana, it now gives us wither damage to cast them instead. But the thing is, we do so much damage, we regain all that wither health right back, just repeating that cycle infinitely. Then with the rings, grabbing Passant's Root is going to increase our spell damage by 10%. Very straightforward. And for the other one, I grabbed the Barrage Root Ring that increases spell damage by 20% for the exchange of losing one spell slot. Honestly, we don't need that many spells, so it's not an issue at all, and if anything, if you manage to get yourself a second one of these, I'd equip both of them for a 40% buff instead. Now before I get into the stats, I need to quickly mention the armor because it is very important. So what I noticed when I was casting these spells is it builds up the frost status effect on ourselves every time I use one, and in some instances I did proc it on myself and took quite a bit of damage and also losing a big chunk of my stamina bar at the same time, which definitely slowed down my playstyle by a lot. So to slow this effect down, I threw on the entire cursed armor set that has the best resistance against frost. This just allows me to cast a lot more spells before frost can proc, and it's also heavy armor, so the protection in general is going to be really good. I didn't even have to put any points into endurance because the hammer itself weighs nothing, the shield only weighs 3.4 pounds, and the catalyst we're using weighs 1.8. Oh, and before I forget, the catalyst I am using is the Lost Berescu's catalyst, the best one you can get, so be sure to max it out. With everything covered, let's dive into the stats. So to use everything in this build, the bare minimum needed is 20 Inferno and 20 Radiance to cast all the spells shown and wield the Lost Berescu catalyst. I then focused heavily into leveling those two stats up to increase my damage further with the spells. Doing one level in each attribute so they're evenly distributed just stops me from hitting their soft caps anytime soon. Getting a decent amount of points in vitality is definitely needed. I would say 25 has been working out pretty good for me, not in the 1 to 2 shot range, more so in the 3 to possibly 4 shots before I die, which I thought was pretty good, but obviously if you want to be tankier then yeah, grab some more, but I think 25 should be the bare minimum. Well, if you guys enjoyed the build, be sure to subscribe and check out some of my other build guides for Lords of the Fallen. And as usual, thanks for watching everyone, and I hope I'll see you all in the next one.